Once I realized that I could reframe everything that happened in my life as my fault, it empowered me to fix those things. Because it's really easy when you just complain and blame it on someone else, you just defer it, and then the same thing can happen over and over again. But if you own it and you say, well, how did I end up hiring this person that's working for me, and what can I do? And maybe I could have taken a little bit more care, and maybe he shouldn't be working for me anymore. And therefore I should create better systems around vetting people when I bring them on board. And therefore I could, and so every time one of these things happened that used to just make me pull my hair out and scream at the top of my lungs, I could now look as an opportunity to create a system so it wouldn't happen again. And this has been incredibly powerful in all parts of my life, but particularly in my business.
Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Ryan Crownholm with us. Ryan is a serial entrepreneur, investor, U.S. veteran, and mentor with roots in construction. Known for developing successful business models, he guides entrepreneurs, CEOs, veterans, and others in creating profitable ventures. His mission involves promoting insubordinate entrepreneurship and transforming the landscape for small businesses and entrepreneurs. He's also the author of the new book, The Hustle Trap, which helps guide the reader through the process of removing themselves from their business so they can focus on what's most important in their life. Ryan, it's so great to have you on the show.
Hey, it's great to be here, Stephan. It's great to see your face.
Yeah, so we know each other from Genius Network, Joe Polish's mastermind. I don't even know if mastermind is the right word. I know Joe would argue that. He doesn't like that word, but it is a family, I think. It's not just a network. It's not just like a brotherhood and sisterhood. It is soul family. To me, it is.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, family, friends. Their business part seems to get smaller and smaller as the years go on.
Yeah, it's been great. And Joe's been a great guest on this podcast and actually on my other show as well on Marketing Speak. So yeah, and a phenomenal human, just a wonderful soul.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
It's because of him that we know each other.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we have a few other connections from the past, from Los Angeles.
Yes, from Metal. Another mastermind that we have in common, and Tian Mu, who is also a past guest on this podcast.
Another amazing human. Yep,
very much so. So great to have you on. Now, I'd love if we start with your origin story of what the heck happened to you, for you, through you, by you, and how powerful that story is. It just blew my mind. I know you shared a 10-minute talk to Genius Network about what happened and lessons and the gifts that you got out of it. But yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. So, I gave a 10-minute talk talking about what was a transformative moment for me, which is, really boils down to an act of stupidity of a runaway truck rolling down a hill that I couldn't get out of the way of. It was a 1-ton dually crew cab pulling a 10,000-pound trailer. And it was early morning, getting the guys going on a construction site. I looked up and saw it coming towards me, and my legs buckled, and I went right down in front of it. And that truck crushed me, ran me over, dragged me down the street until it ran into another car, jackknifed, and I pulled myself out from underneath that truck to a pretty horrific sight. Sort of a bloody mess that I won't get into, but it ended up putting me into trauma surgery for about 12 hours and 6 surgeries over 2 years. And the unfortunate part, or which turned out to be probably fortunate, was that I was a very involved business owner, as many people are. You start your business, you think that you're the most important thing there, and you have to be everywhere doing everything. And so I went from being a very physically capable person. I'm an ex-military guy. I had been running a demolition and general engineering company for a lot of years, to being in a wheelchair in a hospital bed. And I thought for sure that I would lose my business. And as it turns out, I just had to reframe the way that I did things. And I just got behind the computer and I started running my business from a different level than I ever had before. And that has reflected itself into many other businesses since I've started them since then, and transformed that business into a powerhouse that I was able to sell 7 years after that accident. And so besides the business side of things, it was also a pretty big awakening. I guess I would almost wish a near-death experience on everybody, because it really makes you reevaluate how you live your life and, kind of the people that I was surrounding myself with, and, where I was sacrificing for things and where I could improve. And so as soon as I was able to really sit back and start adjusting those things, my life completely changed. And I know you've been through some life-changing experiences yourself, which really resonated with me with our conversations. And so that's sort of my origin story. Besides that, no longer do things on the ground in construction. I had big trucks and heavy equipment and tractors and things, and now I do more construction technology. I've got two businesses I run. One is called Dirt Match, which is an online dirt exchange. Another one is My Site Plan, which is we help people with drafting for construction projects. And then I invest in some other construction related things and do some construction projects, flipping homes and things on the side just for fun, just because I like to get my hands dirty. But that's the sum of it.
And you just recently exited another business, I think, from memory, didn't you?
That was 2014. I had sold my general engineering company. And, since then I've started a couple of more businesses, which were, kind of spinoffs. They were really efficient systems that I had built into my last company, which on their own turned out to be pretty good companies. But, like many people in Genius Network, all of us kind of have our hands into a lot of different things. And so I've got my hands in a lot. And so it's actually the reason why I wrote this book right here, The Hustle Trap, to help people streamline their businesses so that they have time to play around with things and focus on the things that are really important in their life. Most important to me is my family. I have a wife and a 13-year-old come Tuesday. He'll be 13, and a 3-year-old at home. And so I like to spend a lot of time with them. And if I was, tied up to my business, I wouldn't be able to do that. And those are moments that I can't recapture.
Yeah. So what would be the biggest epiphany or insight that you got from the near-death experience, the accident, and the recovery, that whole journey?
I'll say that I probably didn't have enough faith in my people. I had hired good people and I knew that they were good, but I thought that they needed me. And I was surprised when I was suddenly, in a hospital bed. I was thinking, oh boy, no one's going to have any idea what to do. They're just going to be running in the field crazy. And they just snapped into it and they just took care of everything. And I think that they actually functioned better without me. And that was a really big epiphany in business for me, was that, I was probably getting in the way. And I don't think I would have seen that any other way.
Gotcha. And then how long did your recovery take?
It was 2 years of, I had a lot of different surgeries. So re-rods and skid graft, bone grafts. And so there was quite a bit, but I was back at work as soon as I could get on my feet. I started getting back at least to the office or having some sort of presence, but it took some time. I'd say it took me maybe a couple of months or so before I was able to sort of be mobile again. But I was on, a walker for quite a while and then a cane for quite a while after that, and a pretty big limp as well. And so it was a process.
And the limp is gone now, right?
Yeah, I'd say I'm 95%. As long as I stay lean and stay strong, I feel good. But if I let myself go, I'm in a lot of pain. So just got to take care of myself. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. And so what were some of the biggest modalities or tools or practices that made the difference in terms of pain management and amelioration, as far as kind of getting your mind right through this so that you were thinking positively and with hope and gratitude rather than a negative loop in your head? What were some of the physical therapy type tools and technologies that you used to, just give us your favorite, systems and processes and things?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, initial was panic. I was living very much in the physical world, and my physicality was everything. I was a runner. I was, out swinging sledgehammers with the guys. It was something I took great pride in. And losing that, suddenly I went, oh, well, that was my strength. And all of us as entrepreneurs sort of leverage our unique abilities into a business. And, when I got out of the military, I was in the Army. I was air defense. I had fired Stinger missiles at airplanes. And so when you come out trying to find a job like that, nobody's looking for that, so I thought, well, but I am strong. And so I leveraged that. And so it had to I guess I had to dig deep and try to find what else did I have. At that point I had grown a pretty good sized company. And so there were some other skills that maybe I had been ignoring, and apparently turned out I was really good at systems. And so I started integrating systems to organize my business with feedback loops and everything else. So the things that were happening in the field were going to align with the company's mission, with my mission, and with my employees' mission, and satisfy the clients. And so making sure that was all functioning really well together. And so those systems became very, very important to me. And so I think I'm more of a systems engineer now than I ever was before. I think I've learned to be exceptionally good at hiring people, getting the right people in the company to make sure that, they're, representing me in a way that I want to be represented. And so that's another strength that I realized. And just, overall, I think the same things kind of happened in my life. I've learned to take care of my health in a new way. I've learned to love in a new way, to embrace the people around me, understanding that life is finite. Any day can be your last. And I had that tested again last year when I had a diagnosis of cancer. And it was a sort of a freak thing. I went in and had a scan. It turned out that I had a great big cancerous tumor on my kidney. And so I had to have my cancer removed. And it was, had I not found that, my doctor's pretty confident that it would have ended badly for me another year later. And so it once again was another opportunity for me to reevaluate my life and, kind of see where things stand. And so I've tried the accident happened on July 3rd, 2007. And so I call that my Alive Day. And I take that as a day every year where I just sit down and evaluate, where are things at? Am I living in a way that I would be proud of if tomorrow was my last day? And that's been really powerful for me.
And you said it was almost like a fluke that you found this cancer on your kidney. What were the circumstances of that? Like, that sounds like a synchronicity or some sort of divine orchestration from above.
Yeah, well, someone was looking out for me for sure. Actually, my favorite aunt, who I love dearly, had passed away maybe 6 months before that. And I want to say that maybe she kind of compelled me. I'd been going down this sort of a health hacking path where I'd been doing a lot of different things to examine my health and my diet, kind of ever since COVID. I didn't know what that was. And so I thought, well, whatever it is, I know that if I have a better immune system, that I'll be more resistant to it. And so I just started trying to do things to improve my health. I was hiking every day and eating better food, and I dropped some weight. And then I kind of just kept that going. I started getting the constant glucose monitor, and I did just lots of metrics and tracking, kind of a lot of the same tracking mechanisms that I'd used for my business over the years. I just applied it to myself. And I came across this scan. I heard about it on a podcast called a pre-nuvo scan, and it was a full body MRI, high definition scan that uses AI and other things. And I thought it sounded really interesting. And so I signed up for it, and I went in. It was actually one of the first people in Los Angeles to do the scan that had just opened. And so I thought, well, it's probably worthwhile if there's something I've missed with all my other blood testing and all the other optimization that I'm doing. And I was more concerned that maybe it'd be like an aneurysm or something else that was in there, because I don't have any history of cancer. And so when my doctor called me really frantically, like, hey, you've got a great big tumor on your kidney, it really caught me off guard. And so I was in a position where I said, well, I guess we should do a biopsy to make sure it's cancerous. And the doctor said, you do a biopsy, you could release those cancer cells. And even if it's just a tumor, it's, you don't really want a tumor in you, and you got to take it out. And so I kind of had to take my kidney out, not knowing whether or not it was a cancerous tumor. So I went and had the surgery, and sure enough, it was stage 3 cancer when they took it out. And it was quite advanced, but it hadn't yet metastasized or gotten into the veins, but it was encroaching on them. So it was quite close. But that was, certainly divine intervention, being 47 years old, 46 years old, not having any symptoms whatsoever, and just on a whim listening to a podcast and paying $2,500 to do something was, pretty lucky.
Yeah, fortunate.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't believe in luck. I believe everything is orchestrated, and if you get a fortunate event, it wasn't just some random chance.
Oh, I'm 100% sure my Aunt Lori was up there, somehow prodding me to get this test, because, she passed away at 80. I think she's 82 years old, but she had dealt with some cancer in her life. And so, yeah, I think she had her hand in it for sure.
Yeah, amazing. So you had something in your book that jumped out at me. So I have the Kindle version of The Hustle Trap. And it's a section in part 1. The title of that section is "It's Your Fault, Even If It's Not." Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I
Sounds
sure
a little
can.
counterintuitive.
As a young entrepreneur, man, I used to get so upset with employees, vendors, and everybody that would do things that were, because our crews were out and about, and I'd hear about a truck crashing into a house, or issues with job sites, and so I would always kind of blame it on that person, and I'd go home and I'd complain to my wife about this or that, or one day somebody just said, well, really it's your fault. You hired that person, or you didn't maintain your truck well enough, and that's why the engine blew up. And so once I realized that I could reframe everything that happened in my life as my fault, it empowered me to fix those things. Because it's really easy when you just complain and blame it on someone else, you just defer it, and then the same thing can happen over and over again. But if you own it, and you say, well, how did I end up hiring this person that's working for me? And what can I do? And maybe I could have taken a little bit more care, and maybe he shouldn't be working for me anymore. And therefore I should create better systems around vetting people when I bring them on board. And therefore I could, and so every time one of these things happened that used to just make me pull my hair out and scream at the top of my lungs, I could now look as an opportunity to create a system so it wouldn't happen again. And this has been incredibly powerful in all parts of my life, but particularly in my business.
Can you walk us through some of the kind of radical accountability, 100% responsibility type things that you've done in your life and businesses to kind of exemplify this concept?
Well, I think the hiring process is certainly one of them. But, I have 2 kids. If my 12-year-old does something that upsets me, I have to remember I'm 100% responsible for raising that human being. And so I need to take a hard look at myself as where did I fail, and trying to correct it and create a system and have conversations with him and just say, hey, I know that you did this, and perhaps I didn't lay the framework for you to understand why that was wrong, but let's discuss it now. Because now we were empowered. And so I can do that in a lot of different parts of my life. Even an argument with my wife, how can I own it? And so as I just do it, it makes life easier. It's really counterintuitive. You'd think that if everything's my fault, then that sounds really heavy. But it's actually quite the other way around. It's like once you do it, you can actually just start to fix things, and it's powerful.
Mm. So what's something that you fixed that you find that most people don't fix?
Well, I fixed my health is a big one. I think a lot of people don't do that. And this was more recent. I think the big epiphany after my accident was all kinds of ways to fix my business. And I did that very successfully. But those same lessons I didn't necessarily apply to myself. So I was about 50 pounds overweight, and I just wasn't very healthy, and therefore I didn't feel great. So I decided this was my fault. I could blame it on the food system, and I could blame it on that I just, don't have time to go to the gym because I have a family, and I could blame it on all kinds of other things, or I could just own it and say, okay, well, those are your fault. So what can you do about it? And so I ordered a meal delivery service to come in and bring me my food because I couldn't be trusted with my refrigerator. I got a tonal and stuck it on my wall so that I could do a 20-minute workout anytime instead of trying to drag myself to the gym, and I go on walks. And so my health was a big one. As far as other ones, I don't know. It's so prolific in my life now, this way of thinking. It's like, it's a lot of little tiny things now that it doesn't have to be great big things anymore, because if you fix the little tiny things, then the bigger things don't seem to go wrong as much.
Well, it reminds me of a concept I learned from the book, The Tipping Point. And it was Malcolm Gladwell explaining how the mayor of New York City cleaned up the city by, as far as crime was concerned, by stopping the turnstile jumpers and cleaning up the graffiti and the broken windows.
Yes.
Because if a neighborhood is covered in trash and graffiti and people are treating it like it's a worthless area, then the horrible crimes come and follow. If you apply that concept to business, for example, let's say your website, that means you're cleaning up typos, grammar errors, broken links, broken images, things that are obsolete that no longer apply, that, it's all just being updated and cleaned up. And that is indicative of the quality of everything you do. You're a reflection of that level of care and attention with everything. And that could also apply to your health. That could also apply to your relationship, to your life as a member of a community, your life as a member of a family, and an extended family, and so forth.
Yeah, I think that the little minutia pieces that people ignore are far more important than the big, hallelujah, amens. I'm going to train for a marathon, and so they go hardcore and they hurt their knees and their ankles, and then they get the marathon done, and then they stop doing it, and then they fall back into old habits. I'd much rather just say, every day I'm going to walk to the end of the block, and if it ends up being more than that, it will. And these little incremental improvements that you do regularly on a day-to-day basis, it was like, okay, everything that I do in my life, I want to do things that I'm willing to do every day for the rest of my life. So not that I won't do something big like a marathon, but that's not the goalpost. The goalpost is just simply to adopt good, healthy habits for me and for my business and for my family that I can do every day for the rest of my life. And it sure does simplify things, because those little things add up into very big things. Everybody overestimates what they can do in a year, but underestimates what they can do in a decade. Those things that you do in a decade are all about pushing a little bit forward every single day consistently.
Yeah. And the old adage, what gets measured gets managed. It gets misattributed, that quote, to Peter Drucker. But I do believe that is a true concept. So if you're measuring what you're doing and not just kind of eyeballing it, then you can see that you're succeeding, or that you're making progress. And if you don't, then you're just kind of flying blind.
Yeah. I'm a visual person, a data-driven person. That was the constant glucose monitor. Was eye-opening for me, is because I made the connection between food and how my body reacted to food. I could actually see how there's a spike and a drop off, and understanding when it dropped too fast, what that did to my cravings. And I'm like, there was so much data in there that I just didn't know before. And once I saw it, I couldn't go back the other way.
Yeah. What other metrics are you measuring, or did you measure when you were working on the weight loss and improving your overall health? Were you tracking HRV, sleep scores, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I have the Oura Ring and the Apple Watch, and I have the 8 Sleep mattress, and so I've got lots and lots of data points. And then I also have a concierge doctor who does blood testing on me probably every other month, and so we test to see where all my levels are at, to make sure that we keep them balanced. So I've got quite a bit. I've got a lot of data to work off of, and it was before. I spent a lot of my life just like, okay, well, if I want to be healthy, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to throw a bunch of weight around. And as it turned out, by doing that, I wasn't watching my diet and throwing too much weight around. I probably wasn't getting enough protein. I was hungry all the time. And so I ate a lot, and I ate the wrong things. And so I was overweight. And because I wasn't nourishing my body properly, I was injuring myself. And so it would be ups and down of going to the gym. So I was cycling, basically a yo-yo dieter, and that wasn't working for me, but that was the only way that I knew. And so I went with that. And so, it was actually one of the shifts that I made. I said, well, if the problem is my appetite and I like to eat food so much, then why don't I just focus all my energy on that? Appetite, manage my appetite. And so if going to the gym and throwing a bunch of weight around makes me really heavy, I'm not going to do that. Find the activities that don't. Like running doesn't make me hungry. I'll do that. Pull-ups, push-ups don't make me hungry. I'll do that. And so it was always like looking at those things that made my body stronger and didn't feed my cravings. And so it was, I think I finally figured it out. It just took, 47 years to get there.
Right. That's awesome. And so are there any particular biohacks, maybe stuff that you learned from, I don't know, Dave Asprey or somebody that are big innovations to your regimen? Like, I don't know, an infrared sauna or cold plunges or some sort of wearable device?
Yeah.
What's
So, interesting. I've actually been doing the cold plunging for many, many years. I think I first started back in 2014 at a Korean spa, and I would do the sauna and cold plunge there. And then I moved to Colorado, and I had a cold plunge in the ground that was spring fed. And so during the wintertime, I would have to go out there with a sledgehammer and break through the 3 inches of ice to be able to climb inside of it. And so when I moved back to Los Angeles, you couldn't get cold water. And so now in my backyard, I have a walled tent set up. And inside of the tent, I have an infrared sauna, and I've got a cold plunge with a pump that keeps that pump at around 39 degrees. So I do that at home. And then when I'm here at the office, when I walk to lunch, there's a place at lunch where I go and I stop and I do a cold plunge and a sauna there every day at lunchtime. So those have been really good for me. I know it's become very cliche, the cold plunge thing, but for me, it's just one of those things that grounds me.
Mm-hmm. And have you noticed in the metrics that you measure some major improvement because you do the cold plunging and the sauna?
I think that, interestingly, one of the things about the cold plunge is it gets me very in touch with my body. And so if I get into the cold plunge and I find it to be very difficult that day, I almost 100% in certainty am catching a cold or there's something going on inside of me for me to investigate. That's been really interesting for me. But besides that, I think that within a 3-minute cold plunge of breathing and being in touch with my body has as much effect for me, because I've done transcendental meditation before as well. It has just as much effect on me as a 30-minute meditation session. It's really effective for me. And so between my cold plunging, the next most important thing for me is walking. And I walk a lot. So in the morning, I wake up, I walk 2 miles. At lunchtime, I walk a mile to lunch and then a mile home. In the evening, me and the family, we go out and walk a couple of miles. And so I get in, probably 12 to 15,000 steps a day. And that is largely, my meditation. If I don't do my morning walk, I'm nowhere near as effective throughout the rest of the day.
And you haven't done transcendental meditation for a while then?
No, I haven't. It was, it was very effective. It actually had lasting effects for me. But I probably should try to address it again. But I found that just going on walks and doing my other routines seems to have a very similar effect to me.
So what were some of the lasting effects from your transcendental meditation phase?
I think that I was having problems with letting things go. Transcendental meditation really helped me with that. And so, but it was doing 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening when you have, 2 small kids at home and a wife and you're like everything else going on. It became a little bit burdensome for me, but I stuck with it for about 3 or 4 months. And I noticed that if a car cut me off or something, before maybe my blood would boil. I just, instead of, being angry about it an hour later, I'd get worked up. And then 30 seconds later, I would sort of return to my baseline. And that seems to have really stuck. I still recover very quickly from irritations, as long as I'm doing my walks and all the other things that I do.
Oh, very good. And there's this explanation I got from Karen Noe, famous psychic, about meditation, that's listening to God, whereas praying is talking to God. And you need both. You need to have that bi-directional communication with your creator. So do you see that walking as meditation as a way of receiving guidance from above, or is it just to calm the nervous system and get you back into parasympathetic?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just about being alone, undisturbed, and allowing my mind to do what it wants to do. I know a lot of people are really big on having their morning routines and their systems. Like, well, when I walk, I do this exactly every time and I receive it. And I don't give myself these guidelines. I wake up when I wake up. I walk when I walk. I think about what I want to think about. Sometimes I'm consolidating things in my mind from home, sometimes from work. Sometimes I just, staring off at the trees and watching the birds. I can't say that I'm overly structured about, what the outcome of that walk is going to be, but I do know that if I don't go on a walk, my day goes very differently.
So are you journaling at different points during the day as well? Like taking the stuff that's coming in to your mind and the stuff that you're processing or working through and put that down on paper or electronically, or you just kind of not do
Yeah,
that?
if something interesting enough comes up, I'll pull the phone out and maybe make a note of it. I went on a solo backpacking trip for a few days up in Sequoia National Park a couple of weeks ago, and I did some journaling there. That was me alone with my thoughts for 72 hours. And that's really a powerful time for me. I notice that when my body is completely exhausted, my mind is very effective. Hike for 15 miles with a 60-pound pack on, and then sit down and, well, actually I jumped in the lake at the top there. There was still some Arctic snow melt. And so jumped in, chilled myself off, and then dried off and did a little bit of journaling there, and was able to go pretty deep. But I don't do that as often as I probably need to.
Do you remember any of the epiphanies that you got from doing that journaling exercise?
Yeah. I mean, some of them are, personal, but, I think that there was some things that I realized that I need to I'll say that I had a little bit of panic around my son turning 13 years old. And I thought a lot about that on that trip because I just adore him so much. And being a teenager, that means I've only got him for another 5 years. And so I really started thinking about what are the things that I can do in these last 5 years with him in the house to sort of deepen our connection and to sort of take advantage of the time that I have. I think at some point I'd seen one of these charts about the amount of time you spend with your kids, and it's like, 0 to 18 is, really high up there. And after 18, it just really drops off, and it really made me sad. And so that was a big point of thought. Yeah.
And any specific solution to that? Like, you guys going to go on a around the world trip together or anything like that?
Yeah, again, so that's, that goes to a lot of people's mind will go immediately to what's the next big thing that we're going to do together? And I really believe in this incremental stuff. And I think it's the little things that happen every day that are really important. And, it's really coming home and, putting my phone down, seeing if he wants to go play some, we have a pickleball court in our backyard. We'll play some pickleball together. Or we have our remote control cars. We go race our cars together. Or we go on a walk together. And maybe we schedule something. Maybe we go to a movie. But really just being intentional, making sure that every day that he knows how important he is to me.
Beautiful. I heard this bit of wisdom from a YouTube video. It was actually a YouTube video of a TV appearance, like on a local news segment. And it was Rabbi Manis Friedman, who's a very well-known, well-respected rabbi with a big following on YouTube. And it was in relation to Father's Day, because it was like a Father's Day segment. And the thing that stuck for me was him explaining that the job of the father is not to make the child feel loved. That's the job of the mother. The job of the father is to make the child feel needed. And that stuck with me, because if I change my tack with my son, who's 4 now, and I still tell him I love him all the time, like constantly, but that's not from a place of, well, what if I don't? Then, will he know that he's loved? No, he's going to know he's loved, because his mom is 100% on top of that. Right? He's just enveloped with love all day, every day. But if I start taking on the responsibility of being the parent that makes sure that he feels needed and understands how needed he is in the family, in the world, in the community, at his school, his soul mission, his life's mission, I think that will be a job well done as a father.
See, now I've learned a new tidbit. I really like that. Yeah. So I think that as a father also is, I challenge him in a very respectful way, constantly challenging him, making him think in new ways. My 12, soon to be 13-year-old is he's more of an intellectual. And so we have a lot of deep conversations about different topics about the the world and the universe, or about, nature, or about whatever. And so it just kind of challenged him to, to think from, I don't know, just from a different perspective. I homeschool him as well. And so he's, I think, I like that reframing though. Make him feel needed. I think that's really important for all men.
Yeah. Awesome. And any plans to take him to, I don't know, some sort of personal development seminar, maybe Tony Robbins or Brendan Bouchard, or I don't know, something that will be really above and beyond what kids normally get exposed to. I know you're homeschooling, so that gives you a lot of leeway to work that into the regular curriculum. But I'm curious if you have any plans for a big event like that.
Yeah, I think he's been a little on the young side. And so, I mean, honestly, since he was probably 5 or 6 years old, I've brought him to business meetings, and he's handles himself very well. I wanted him to see that part of what I do when I go away during the daytime. And so he's very familiar. But as far as him now, 12, turning 13 years old, I would love to bring him to, I don't think he can go this year to annual conference for Genius Network, but I would like to bring him next year. There's that the LEAP program, I think is very cool in Los Angeles. So I'd like to get him into LEAP probably next year. Yeah. I don't know about any other ones. I'd be very open to anything that just shocks his system and makes him think about the world in a different way. I'd be really interested in doing.
Yeah. I've taken my adult daughters, I have 3 of them, to Unleash the Power Within seminar. So that's 4 days with Tony Robbins. And on the first day and the night, you actually are walking on the 2,000 degree hot coals in your bare feet. And they did it. They all did it. And, once you do that once, you realize that a lot of the barriers, boundaries, limitations that you put on yourself are they're fallacy. They're not real. They're illusions.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. I would definitely be open to that. I probably will do that. Anything to challenge him. We've done a lot of talking around, I tell him, I walk around the world today and I see a lot of people who don't seem to have ever really become adults. I see 30-year-old men that behave like children. And I've, decided, trying to figure out what would be a really good rite of passage for him. And we've explored all kinds of different ideas, even as just dropping him into the wilderness for a few days with just nothing but water and see how he would do. But I feel like there has to be some sort of delineation. And I've included him in that process. We've been talking about it for years. And so we've got a few different plans of what we're going to do. We just haven't settled on one yet.
Yeah. And then once he's grown up and maybe going to college, something I've heard that was really good, really empowering and life-changing is called Seminar at Sea, where the kid, for let's say their first semester at college, is going on a cruise for the entire semester, and they stop in these different places in the world to give back, to volunteer, to help teach, train, clean up, and whatever, these different areas. That's powerful, I think.
I've heard about that, and actually, Eddie has traveled much of the world. We spent quite a bit of time in Ecuador, Colombia, Medellin, Bogota. We even at one time, me and my son went and met with Roberto Escobar, Pablo Escobar's brother, and had a pretty lively conversation. We spent time in Iceland studying geothermal energy for a couple of weeks. We spent 2 weeks in Alaska. And this has always been under the guise of education. And so this is it was after the first grade that we pulled him out, that we started homeschooling. We would spend a month leading up to it learning about something, about wherever it was that we were going to, and then we would hit the ground and connect the dots. And so we went to Hamilton, and then went to New York and to Washington D.C. and saw Hamilton's signature, and then it's Eliza's gravestone in New York City, and so like stuff like that for him, it just brought it all to life. And so he's got an education that is pretty unmatched to what it would have been had we left him in school.
Wow. That's impressive. That's, very, very impressive. Yeah. Hats off to you for that.
I think one of the things he was in public school, and, here I'm an entrepreneur. My wife works for herself. So entrepreneurs, we think of things very differently. And it felt almost hypocritical to leave my son sitting in this system that was very non-entrepreneurial. That was, this sort of archaic system where, it's kind of setting them up for, we don't really know what for, and it just,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to live, if I'm going to
conspiracy theories around what they're being set up for.
Well, whatever that is, but if I'm going to say I can't have a traditional employer, so I'm going to set up my own life and I'm going to structure my life the way that I want to on my own terms, but then I'm going to take my son and put him in someone else's structure that they've designed for him, felt very hypocritical of me. So taking him out and homeschooling him aligned much more with the way that I live my life. And hopefully he'll understand that he can create his own life in whatever way he wants to without being pigeonholed into a little box, which was what it felt like that they were doing, between kindergarten and then first grade. It was kind of like, it just doesn't feel like an environment that's going to like nourish him.
Yeah. So one book that popped in my mind would be, I think, a great addition to the books that you've read. Perhaps you've already read it, but it's called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. Are you familiar with that book?
I'm not.
Yeah. I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of value out of that.
Okay. Yeah. I will pick that up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, what are some of the spiritual kind of lessons or, I don't know, connections or things that you want to share that have come about because of you being a parent, because of the near-death experience, and or because of the cancer scare, or because of just business challenges and things like that? What would be some things that that you'd like to share with our listener?
Well, I don't know if it's spiritual or not. After being, very, 19 years old, I was combat deployed and learned very early about people, and that, all people basically want the same thing. We want to be happy. We want to feel safe. And that has always really stuck with me. And so I have a pretty deep respect for people of all kinds. I have, spiritual is a little bit different for me, but this, how do I say, I just feel like I'm just connected in a way to the world. And every time that I've had something that was like a near-death experience, cancer or otherwise, I feel more connected, and not necessarily just to my children or my family, but to everyone. I have a deeper understanding. You're a parent, so you kind of understand the fact that, you're kind of just a steward to these little humans. They're just a part of the mass population, and so we just kind of instill what we can in them and then set them free. And so I don't have a good answer, because the spiritual, I guess that is probably not a journey that I've taken. Yeah.
But the thing is, we all have different definitions of these kinds of words. And one thing I bet you can relate to, this is an example for me, this is spiritual. I was guided, I felt guided to contact my father, and I don't have a super close relationship with him. We're friendly, and I do very much, care for him and appreciate him, but I don't remember him ever saying I love you when I was growing up, and he wasn't in my life really much at all through my childhood. And yet, I wanted to follow through on this nudge that I got from above to give him a call and make sure he knew that I forgave him and that I love him, and that also my sense about it is that my mother, who has passed, also forgives him. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this uncomfortable call. As soon as I hit the button to make the call, at that very second, he sends a text message to me, which is unheard of, because he probably texts me a few times a year.
Wow.
That's it. So we're all connected. As you said, we're connected. We're connected not just to our kids, but to like everyone. And that was pretty special.
Yeah, I had an experience. I've not been a religious person in my life, but I had an experience with 5-MeO DMT. I'd never done anything before, any sort of psychedelic before, and I did one day, and after coming out of that experience, just realized that there is something out there that's orchestrating things, and it's probably much larger than my mind could comprehend, and it is everywhere, and I'm not going to try to understand it, but I think it opened my mind to a very larger world and connectedness, and that was really powerful for me.
Yeah, amazing. So how does that apply to the business world? Because you've got successful businesses, you've got investments, you help kind of mentor or coach some people, I'm guessing, on how to grow their business, whether it's just friends who through Genius Network or another mastermind, or perhaps they're like official mentees or something. But I'm sure you're spreading your wisdom and inspiration out into the world, in the business world. So how does this kind of knowingness that everything is connected and that you're connected to it kind of flow through to that business world?
I think one of the best things I ever did was at 38 years old, I sold my business. And I had sold businesses before, but they were just offshoots of my main business. And so I still had a thing, and I sold it. And I realized that I didn't feel like I'd mastered the business world to an extent. And I didn't have purpose. And so I went into quite a bit of depression, and then that's after that is when I started another business and another one. But there was something about the 20 years of business knowledge that I gained that I just kind of still had inside of me, that I wanted to give back. And so I've done a lot of mentoring. I spent a lot of time with an organization called Defy Ventures. As a matter of fact, last Wednesday I was at Tehachapi State Prison all day, helping mentor guys getting ready to get out of prison. To leverage their unique ability into a business. They're entrepreneurs in training. We call them EITs. And then I'll also go to the halfway houses and work with them there, sort of getting them ready with soft job skills. After they get out, I have a book club where we go through a lot of different books that can help them. And then I do a lot of mentoring in there. I have some one-on-one mentoring that I do. And then also with young entrepreneurs and veterans, of course, being a veteran myself. And so I feel like that's where I get my purpose now. And I just realized that the whole retirement thing was a scam. After I sold the business, it made me really sad that a lot of people, go for 65 years in a job thinking that someday they're going to retire and just sit on the beach somewhere or go golfing for the rest of their life. And most of them are, go into depression and, feel lost. And so it was a lesson that I learned that I'm so grateful to have learned, that I am, I have purpose. Everything in the world has purpose. Whether it's a deer or a mosquito or a hammer, or everything has a purpose. And so to think that I, simply just was going to retire and not have to have a purpose was probably foolish. So it was a great lesson for me that I'll carry with me until my last day.
Amazing. It's funny that you mentioned mosquitoes, because it reminds me of something I learned, that, these different creatures are just messengers. And so I became acutely aware after my second spiritual awakening and saw the Matrix and all that if a mosquito is buzzing me in the middle of the night, that's not random. That's not an accident. There's a purpose there. And so I would tune in and find out what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to get up? Am I supposed to go and kill it, or what? What am I supposed to do? And several occasions I was just floored by, it was the perfect exact moment I needed to wake up, because my wife was awake in the other room, and our baby at the time, really, young, I'm probably a year old or something, was, I don't know, fussing, and she was distraught or really tired or something. And here I come to the rescue. I was sleeping in another room, but a mosquito woke me up at exactly the time I needed to wake up. It's like, again, we're all connected, you, me, and the mosquito.
Yeah, my son, he just built a paludarium in our living room. Paludarium is, or it's like a fish tank, but it has some water, and he got these little freshwater crabs, and it's this really cool thing that he built. But the unexpected consequence was that the mosquitoes got in there and actually started breeding inside of it. Now I'm like, he's basically got a mosquito breeder inside of our house that we're battling against, trying to get rid of them. So that's why I thought of mosquitoes.
That's funny. I forget what you add to the water that just makes it impossible for them to breed in there. I think it was like a TikTok, YouTube video, Instagram video, something. I don't watch TikTok, but it's like one of those short type things, and it was like apple cider vinegar or something. You put that in the water, and
Okay, maybe I should probably do the research, because we went to the pet store and we bought something. It was like you put a drop of it in there and it's supposed to make it so that they don't breed. Well, my son, being, the 12-year-old diligent child that he is, got on the internet and Googled every single ingredient in there because he was worried about the health of his crabs. And he found out that some of those ingredients were really dangerous, and he did not want to put them in the same tank. And so I was like, you gotta honor that. Go, okay, let's find another solution. So in the meantime, I just go in there every day and I just smush the larvae with my finger until he figures out what he's going to do. So,
well, there's always that way. There's always brute force.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's a very dedicated dad. Good job. And now I know we're getting close to time, but I wanted to circle back for just a minute to this D5 Ventures and how you're helping prisoners, inmates. And this is a very unusual thing for most people. Like, oh, I don't have any problem going to volunteer at the soup kitchen or whatever, but it's a rare person who's willing to work with seemingly hardened criminals. What was it that drew you to that, or what synchronicity put you in the path of that nonprofit, or some person who maybe was inspiring to you, like an ex-convict or something? I don't know. I'm just curious what the story is behind that.
So I've done some mentoring with veterans, but it's actually pretty hard to get involved in a lot of the veteran organizations. Whereas this organization, I went to do a volunteer session with them, and I just was so impressed by what they were doing. And, these guys, the majority of them are, well, first off, I'm a person that, leveraged my unique abilities into a business. When I got out of the military, I had nothing, and I built a very good sized business based off of, just brute force. And learned a lot of lessons along the way. And so, if I could save these guys 10 years after they've given up 10 or 20 years, that could be useful. The guys who finish this EIT program, there's like the recidivism rate just goes down to almost zero. I mean, it's incredible. Matter of fact, I had another guy on Wednesday that was a volunteer. He was in prison for 26 years. He got out after he went through the Defy program. He now is in Watts. He has a bakery. He's selling baked goods to all these other stores. He's catering events. He's also taught the stuff he learned in Defy to some of his neighbors, and some of his neighbors now have started their own businesses. So there's like this cascading effect of, this is a way that I feel like I can contribute to. If I could help these guys, have a head start and be an advocate for them and be able to leverage these things, that maybe they won't go back into prison, or maybe they won't commit another crime. Like, that's, to me, is quite empowering. A lot of them, I'll say most of them, were young men under 25 years old, lots of testosterone, no guidance, no means to protect themselves, the sort of desire to belong. So they went in a gang, and then they did something stupid. And then they spend a decade in prison or 2 decades in prison, and their prefrontal cortex is now developed, and their testosterone has calmed down, and they've seen some examples. They've picked up some books and done some reading. And so now they're ready to redirect their energy. And so it's sad for me to see these young guys go away, because I was a wild man when I was young. I went to jail a couple of times, for being crazy or drinking or fighting or whatever. But I never got caught doing something stupid enough to get myself locked up for a long period of time. And so it's somewhere that I feel that my talent and abilities is useful. And I think in life that I want to feel useful.
Amazing. There's a book I'm reading. I just happened to start reading. It's really profound. It's by Peter Sage, and it's called The Inside Track. This guy ended up in prison for 6 months in the worst, most toughest prison in the UK called Pentonville. And it was completely out of the blue. He got put there for a contempt of court by a judge in a civil matter. And after those 6 months, he left with no criminal record. But in the time he spent in prison, he wrote 11 letters. He made all these changes to the prison system and helped all these people inside get hope and a sense of purpose and everything. He was a really big coach into personal development and everything. And he applied all of the principles that he had learned and that he had applied with his clients in the prison. And he wrote all of this down in the letters that he wrote. And this is a book of all those letters compiled together. It's really profound. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I'll read it. Yeah. That's amazing. I love these stories. Listen, I like to champion the underdog. There's a lot of people that just didn't have it quite as, fortunate as we did. And we need to help lift those people up if we want to have a better society. So that's what I hope to do.
Awesome. Well, you're well on your way. And, thank you for being a light in the world. And I really enjoy knowing you and having you in my circle of friends and colleagues. So thank you.
Likewise, Stephan. It's been fun.
Yeah. And thank you, listener. Now you go be a light in the world, and we'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host. In the meantime, have a fantastic week. This is Stephan Spencer signing off.